Hey everyone. Today I'm going to be breaking down my latest 90% speedrun for LittleBigPlanet to hopefully give some explanation to what's actually going on throughout it. The game starts by spawning us into Introduction, but there's a bit of setup we have to do before the run starts. First I open the XMB and move over to the PSN tab, which is for a trick later on. I'm also turning off the level music, which can help prevent lag in a few places. Then I change to 4 other controller numbers, since the game lags the first time you select them. I've also started on player 5 for the trick that we need to do at the start of the run, which we can now start after waiting for all of the players to despawn, closing the error message, and restarting the level, where the timer starts on the first input. Right off the bat, we're going to be skipping the introduction by spawning multiple players over and over to have the entrance completely run out of lives, by first holding in the PS button to bring up the controller settings, where once we get a game over, we're allowed to return to the pod. I've started on player 5 because it lets me close these error messages straight away, which I couldn't do if I started on player 1. And since I only have one profile on my console, I'm able to spawn all of the players without needing to return to the game to select which player they are. So all this is spawning players, waiting for them to despawn, then repeating it until there's no more lives, where the game over screen then comes up, letting me return to the pod. Here there's 2 cutscenes that get skipped. That playing on an earlier version makes easy since there's a button that lets us do it. Then I join player 2, which spawns the host. Then I change to player 1 so that I'm a guest, but still have menu control. After this we can load first steps, where now I can actually start explaining what we're doing. This speedrun involves using an exploit called Overlord, which allows us to attach an emitter to a player that spawns scoreboards, letting us finish any level instantly. But this can't actually be done until unlocking create mode, which doesn't happen until completing the gardens. So I play the first few levels normally, sort of. The reason I need to be playing as a guest right now is because I need to attach the emitter to the host so that I can make sure that I'm joining the same player every time, since the host gets spawned first if they aren't present. This is important because for each level, I have to despawn the player with the emitter before leaving, since traveling through a loading screen removes the emitter from the player. So I'm going to be constantly spawning and despawning the host to get through everything. But for now I just need to complete first steps, which we're about halfway done with. There's a small skip here that's kind of difficult to get, but it saves about 5 seconds, so it's good that I got it. Now though, we just fall down and move over to the Queen so that she can talk to us, pick up the stickers, and then use them to progress. We get a good moment to put our costume on here, which doesn't add anything, but I like to use this monkey one, as well as the black puppet since it comes with this player. Now that the bridge starts to move, we can progress by slope jumping down here, and then dialogue jumping past the Queen, collecting these bubbles to then head to the King, where we then do another dialogue jump, pause the game and return to the pod while still hitting the scoreboard. Here's another cutscene skip, except this time I do it by playing another cutscene over it, so the original one gets overridden. Now we can start Get a Grip, which I paused the game for while it was loading, because doing this actually skipped the zoom out animation when entering the level, as well as disabling any magic mouse near the entrance, which saves a lot of time when doing it across every level. The rest of Get a Grip is just finishing as fast as I can, so there isn't a whole lot to say apart from when I messed up a few times, so I'll probably just be letting it play out. There are a few strats that we don't do in runs though because they're too hard. Like how you can completely get over the wall we just jumped without even touching it. Or by getting up to this space from a lower point, which is a little faster. There's a few different ways to get over this wall. This isn't the fastest, but it's usually the easiest. Somehow I still mess it up so many times though. Then there's another skip that I missed. There's a couple different ways to get on top of these sponges, which skips the seesaw section, but I messed up both of them, so I'll just do this part normally. All of this is just playing the level as intended, so I'll skip to the end so we can start Skate to Victory. We go in by doing a pause load, which skips the zoom out animation. Then after running to the right a bit, I start by spawning another player to do a trick called a deload, which lets me remove the collision of certain objects by having a player despawn as they're coming out of a checkpoint, such as the base of this windmill. I pause so that they despawn at the right time. Now after waiting for the platform to stop moving, I do a trick called a reload by attempting to sign into PSN, which brings back the collision of the objects, and since the windmill is inside of the level's floor, it gets shot out abruptly, letting us fly over the whole thing. The goal is to land directly on the scoreboard, but it's so hard to tell where you are when you're flying through the air, so it's fine just to land anywhere in this area, since we can walk up to the scoreboard anyway. But now that we're finished with the gardens, 2 more cutscenes are skipped using the same strategy as earlier, and the most interesting part of the run can begin, the create mode segment. This is where the Overlord trick will get set up, but first there's several tutorials to get through so that the emitter can be unlocked. The first one involves stacking these cardboard cutouts onto each other, where as soon as the requirements are met, I can return back to create mode and commence the next tutorial. This next one just requires an object to be placed in each of the 3 layers, so there isn't much to say about it. For the music one, I just need to turn up each of the sliders to a certain level. They don't even need to be maxed out to finish the tutorial. This next one is the shortest since all you need to do is smear one of the shapes very briefly to complete the tutorial. The corner editor one wants you to create 3 spikes on the cardboard, but you can actually just spam the tool to finish it completely. For the glue tutorial, normally you have to move the objects around so you can stick them together in the right way, but the fastest way to do it is by using the body to get them all at once. The material changer tutorial is completed very much as intended, so there isn't much to say about it. It is pretty easy to select the wrong piece though. For the sound tutorial, we need to be standing on the ground so that we can activate it straight away, and it doesn't work if you edit the speaker before you place it, so I have to do it the long way. The next one is pretty similar, where this time I have to put some text into the mouth and then stand in front of it so it plays. The fire tutorial's requirements are to set the object on fire, extinguish it, and then get burnt by it. So the fastest way to do this is to toggle the fire 3 times to not leave the pop-up menu, then get burnt by it. Then the bow tie and the bolt tutorial is actually already close enough to barely attach it to the cardboard, finishing this one pretty quickly. The string tutorial is mostly done as intended, but this is where the emitter actually becomes unlocked, so the only tutorial left to do is for the emitter. All this one needs is the emitter to be placed down and then have a ghost spawn from it, where I can now finally start setting up the Overlord trick. First I place down a scoreboard which needs to be made smaller so it's able to spawn in each level. This is done by crushing the base. Now I just delete the metal so it isn't in the way, then I capture the scoreboard so it can be emitted. Now I place an emitter and change its settings so it's always trying to emit, the object can last forever, and it can spawn multiple at once. Then I select the scoreboard that I just captured and I make it as small as I can. Now I capture this new scoreboard that was just spawned, then I put it back into the emitter so it can be spawned again, making it even smaller. I do this one final time, except this time I place the scoreboard in the correct position for it to be spawned in each level. Now to attach the emitter to the host, I copy it and spam X as I connect another controller with a wired connection, which attaches it to the player. Now I disconnect the controller, and use the friends button on the pause menu to instantly despawn them, where I can then leave create mode with everything set up. From here I can head back to the story mode and start completing each level, pausing to skip the zoom animation, connecting the second controller once the level loads, completing it with the scoreboard, disconnecting the controller, and then returning to the pod. Except I need to make sure to hit the friends button as the menu closes so that the player despawns in time, keeping the emitter from disappearing. This gets repeated across every remaining level, with some slight variation. Some levels like Swing and Safari make us move forward a layer before disconnecting, since the scoreboard doesn't spawn in the default layer for some reason. In Meerkat Kingdom and Elephant Temple, the scoreboard actually falls through the ground, which is pretty amusing, but it does kill the players, so we need to exit pretty quickly. Aside from that though, we can stay mostly still in nearly all of the levels. It's just a matter of connecting and disconnecting the controller at the right times. Before the instant despawn trick using the friends button was discovered, we used to need to wait at least 10 seconds before they despawned automatically in every single level. So this discovery definitely helped getting the time a lot lower, as well as making the run more entertaining. There isn't much more that happens in the rest, so I'll just skip through and show off the noteworthy levels. In Boomtown, we can't actually spawn a scoreboard inside the heart at all for whatever reason, so I just wait for the door to open to drag them out. The mines is the most annoying level because of how much the checkpoint is moving, because depending on when you spawn the player changes where they land. Sometimes they actually get crushed by the minecart, which removes the emitter. The next few levels are fine, but at the end of the islands, we have to move the player across since the scoreboard won't spawn here, and there's no layer in front. The Dancer's Court can be weird because of the moving checkpoint, but it's not too bad. Magician's Palace makes us move forward a layer again, but all of the wilderness is super easy. The scoreboard doesn't spawn in the collector until we can move forward a layer, where the run is completed in 12 minutes and 38 seconds of in-game time. I hope you enjoyed this different type of explanation video, and hopefully it made sense of what's actually going on in these runs. I'm not planning on returning to this category, but it can still be improved by a bit, so feel free to try it out if you're interested in running. Thanks for watching.